We are His hands, we are His feet, we are His people, children of the Lord. We share the home, we share the dream, believers in Jesus, children of the King.
This evening we're going to be talking about the eighth and final Christian virtue in the list of virtues that Peter shares with us in 2 Peter chapter 1, starting in verse 5. It's really the crown jewel of the Christian virtues. It's agape. Now, leading up to this, I believe Peter is focusing first on our inner development as Christians and our relationship with God before he sets the stage for the last two virtues that I believe have to do with how we interact with other people and how we show our faith. And so he begins, remember, so then make every effort to add to your faith virtue, to your virtue knowledge, to your knowledge temperance, to your temperance patience, to your patience godliness, because these six all speak directly to our relationship with God and our health as Christians. They also, I believe, form the basis for our ability to carry out the last two virtues, which we looked at last week in brotherly kindness and this week in agape. Because now you're talking about expressing your faith and blessing the lives of others. Agape is an interesting concept and term. It's a challenging one. Agape is kind of a difficult word to translate. It's one of those terms that scholars would say was taken by the New Testament writers and Christianized or sanctified. There's a parallel, for instance, in the word logos, which is translated as word. John takes logos, which the Greeks saw as the reason or logic behind the universe, and applied that term to Jesus and said Jesus is the Word, and uses that in that beautiful introduction to the Gospel of John in John chapter 1. Well, it's kind of the same way with agape. The writers of the New Testament take the word agape and they give it this beautiful, special, sanctified meaning. Now, I said all that to say, I really, to be honest with you, don't like agape being translated as love, because I think that's just insufficient and almost misleading. Here's why. The word love in English has been, I think, romanticized and eroticized. And so generally when we think of love, we think in those two terms. And that's not what agape is about. As you read through the New Testament, agape is an attitude. It's not an emotion. It is a determination to seek another person's highest good, to do what is best for them. It's an incredibly noble and beautiful thing. In fact, when John is talking in 1 John about love, agape, he will tell us in 1 John 4 verse 8 that God is agape. Now, I think that's very revealing and very important, because what that says is that the more that we show agape to others, the more we show God to others. Because at the core of the concept of agape is the nature of God. God is going to do what's best for you and what's best for me. He's going to seek our highest good. Agape is an incredibly noble thing. In Matthew chapter 5, Jesus will say that we are to agape our enemies. He will go on to say that God shows this kind of agape because God sends rain on the just and the unjust. In other words, you can take the worst sinner out there, the most blasphemous person that exists, and does God give him air to breathe and water to drink and food to eat? Does God give him life, allow him to continue to exist? Yes, he does. Because agape is always seeking another's highest good regardless of whether they quote unquote deserve it or not. You see, agape is a gift. Just like grace is a gift and mercy is a gift, agape, brothers and sisters, is a gift that you give to others. It is a gift from God. And as you discuss agape this evening, please keep in mind what a beautiful, wonderful thing it is that we get to share with each other and with the world and show toward our God. I want to end by sharing with you Paul's definition of agape, because there's not a better one anywhere. And I think this can serve as a basis for the discussion that will take place this evening, because listen carefully to what Paul says about the importance of agape. And as I read this, I'm not going to read love. I'm going to read agape. Because again, I think it's important not to get this noble emotion confused with sometimes the baser thing that people often term love. So listen now, please, to 1 Corinthians 13, where Paul talks about the beauty of agape. If I speak in the tongue of men and of angels, but have not agape, I'm a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but have not agape, I'm nothing. If I give away all I have, and if I deliver up my body to be burned, but have not agape, I gain nothing. Agape is patient and kind. Agape does not envy or boast. It's not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Agape bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Agape never ends. So now, faith, hope, and agape abide. These three. But the greatest of these is agape. May you have a wonderful, fruitful discussion this evening as we challenge each other to care for one another as God would care for us. Thank you.
We share the dream.